So for context, as Nate is getting this set up, Nate and I this morning before we recorded, we met up and went and ate breakfast at our local Cracker Barrel in West Valley City, Utah. And while there, while I was paying for my portion of the breakfast, Nate was walking around, and I guess you can fill us in on how you stumbled into this, Nate. But Nate stumbled into a vinyl recording that he purchased, and led to a conversation about the album, and led to us just wanting to
just talk about it since it came up. So about a year ago, so we'll give a little backstory. So we one of the reasons we went to Cracker Barrel is we met each other on our LDS mission in Knoxville, Tennessee, 2000 to 2002. And of course, Cracker Barrel is a very southern place. And since I moved down here from Boise in 2015, we've gotten together on a regular basis to watch movies and to eat. And I had commented this morning, we've never been to Cracker Barrel, which doesn't make any sense considering where we met. You'd think this would be a place that would occur to us to go. So we went to Cracker Barrel. And afterwards, when we were paying, they have the kind of the crazy crap general store shop element of it, which is really big in this Cracker Barrel. It's not nearly as big in the one in Boise, and I don't recall it being as big in the ones I was in the South.
Oh, I remember it being that big in the ones in the South.
It's pretty big. It's the size of like a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, and it's probably the other location that I've been to here in Utah, up in Layton, Utah. It's probably of a similar size in that location.
But I was wandering around looking at the crazy crap, and they had a section of vinyl records. Now,
which I never would have expected a Cracker Barrel to have.
Yeah. So about a year ago, so I decided I needed a hobby that was cheap. And I've been thinking about this for a while. And I'm like, vinyl records. You can walk around into your Goodwills and your Savers and your Deseret Industries.
Which is something Nate does on a regular basis.
Yeah, and they're dirt cheap. And there is a pretty decent record community here in Salt Lake. There's a number of record stores. There's
which is perhaps a little surprising.
Meets. Yeah, it's a little bit hipster, but I just thought it would be a fun thing to do. And I've concentrated almost entirely on records less than $5, typically $1 to $2, typically at a thrift store. There's been a couple things that I have purchased full price. I got the Talking Heads 1975 debut album on a reissue because I wanted it. And that was like $17, $18. And I think there was something else I paid full price for around $20. This is making this like the second most expensive album I've purchased. And I probably own like 60 records now that I picked up in the last year. But I saw this, and I'm like, I gotta get it. So it is John Denver and the Muppets-A Christmas Together. It's from 1979. I grew up on this. I have owned this in the cassette and CD form, and now I own it on vinyl. My CD, I think, is back in Boise. I'm not sure where it is. So I would listen to it online when I didn't have a physical copy of it. But I'm like, if I'm collecting records, and I can purchase this record, which, as I joked, is possibly the definitive album
of your collection at this point.
Well, just of my life. So
okay.
they have the question, the interview question. What's the album that defines you? And I've joked, well, it's probably one of two things. It's either David Byrne's Grown Backward from 2003, or John Denver and the Muppets-A Christmas Together from 1979. Those are the two definitive albums of my life. And
which, if you don't know, Nate, is probably a good summary.
Yeah. So I've been listening to this since I was probably around 4 or 5 years old. And there are a couple songs. Now, of course, there's the Muppet songs. There's their Jingle Bell Rock and the 12 Days of Christmas, and where they do the comedy routines. But John Denver does some serious singing in this with some kind of somber spiritual type music. I'm blanking the name of the composer. He did a lot of things for Jim Henson. He also wrote Evergreen, which won the Oscar. It was in the 76 version of A Star Is Born. Barbra Streisand sang it. I want to say Paul Williams.
Paul Williams, yeah.
Paul Williams.
Plays Little Linus in Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah. So Paul Williams. So he wrote some of these songs, and the one that I'm going to play for Rob is arguably my favorite song.
Hey, he wrote songs in Emmett Otterjug Band.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the things he did for Jim Henson.
Huh. Which is a tangent to a movie
which is a
Nate
tangent,
showed me
which
last
I showed
year.
you last year, which is a Christmas special from 78, 79 that I also grew up watching and that I introduced Rob to just last year. So this song is called When the River Meets the Sea.
Okay.
Thus the winds of time will take us with a sure and steady hand. When the river meets the sea.
That moves me. Even now, like I've been listening to this since I was like 5, and I probably listened to this album a couple times each Christmas. And at least the first time I listen to it each year, it tears me up. This was written for Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, which was a special that Jim Henson did with a Canadian broadcasting company, and HBO got involved at some point. That's where I saw it as a young kid. And he talks in the special features for the DVD about how this and a lot of the other songs, it's a Christmas special, there's spiritual elements to it. Jim Henson's spirituality is definitely present, but it's kind of diffuse. It's hard to categorize. And that's what this song is. I think this is an extremely spiritual song, but that it is about the questions more than the answers. And as I've gotten to be less dogmatic over my life, it's resonated even more. That sometimes the very fact that these are questions is just moving. And some of the lyrics here, like a baby when it is sleeping in its loving mother arms, what a newborn baby dreams is a mystery. It's dreaming. What on earth is that dream about? And forgetting the word to use to describe it, the simile or the metaphor, where he talks about when the mountain touches the valley, all the clouds are taught to fly, as our souls will leave this land most peacefully. Though our minds be filled with questions, in our hearts we'll understand when the river meets the sea. Using water as it goes from snow and the river into the sea as a metaphor for the journey. That we don't understand, but that we will. And that, going back to the thing about the child, the baby, but his life will find a purpose, and in time he'll understand when the river meets the sea, when the river meets the almighty sea. And there's just something that, I mean, even now, it is the song that spiritually touches me more than any other song. And yeah, it just speaks to me somehow. Very moving. And then you've got freaking Robin, the Kermit's nephew, singing it, and you'd think that would detract from it. No, it's better.
So, I mean, within the context of that movie, this was probably the best song in that movie.
Yeah.
Which Jim Henderson Muppet type movies try to be good serious movies, and for this to be the best song in that movie, it says something.